January is Vocational Service Month, and Peter asked I talk about vocational service. And so what I'd like to do is talk about the role of vocational service in giving the gift of Rotary. As Jeremy mentioned, I was a recipient of a Rotary Foundation Ambassadorial Scholarship Foundation. And at the time that I applied for scholarship, I was a cub reporter on a newspaper in St. Joseph, Missouri at the St. Gazette. This was before the internet, and I had to go to the library to find out this scholarship. And I also had to find a Rotary Club. And of course, at that time, we were a male organization. So for a young woman just out of college looking anxious to see the world, it was a little bit intimidating. But fortunately, I found a club in St. Joseph, Missouri, the St. Joe East Club, and I connected with a Rotarian who is actually on this call today, Steve Capelli. He was an administrator for the local college, someone who was in higher education. And in an act of vocational service, Steve helped me through the Rotary application. We reconnected year when he was district governor for 7630 in this zone, and I was so thrilled to meet him again, and he still had a copy of my application. So I think Steve has been a very good administrator. I was awarded a full scholarship for a postgraduate study year at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. That was in the year 1980-81. Now, as a journalist, a cub reporter, I was making $250 a week. Now that adds up to $13,000 a year. And as you can see, my payment schedule, letter of award, I had just gotten a scholarship that was $10,632. All my expenses and all of my travel for a full year. So you can see how important this Rotary gift was to me. Following that year in Hong Kong, I eventually was able to launch an international career in government business. And our daughter, Sasha, we had the opportunity to live and work in Beijing and Hong Kong. And then we moved back to the United States and we lived in Bentonville, where Ken joined our local Rotary Club. And I went to work at Walmart in the women's economic empowerment area. And that's when I learned about Rotary's avenue of service and vocational service in particular. One of my jobs was women's economic empowerment programming and training. Ken happened to be the president of our club, and we had the opportunity to go to a Rotary convention for the first time in Sydney, Australia, where we learned from the Australian Rotarians that they were doing International Women's Day programs. We decided that Bentonville needed an International Women's Day event to uplift the women and girls in our community. Organizing this event, Vocational Service Action, was using my vocation to serve our community. And I think you're going to recognize two women who were speakers at our very first event, Jennifer Jones and Mary Beth Growney-Celine, who came and participated. This ultimately led to another opportunity to serve on this Rotary International Committee that had the oversight of vocational service. And I was serving with Robert Hall, who also is on this call today. And I want to recognize Robert for his leadership in expanding the Rotary umbrella to include affinity groups. This important policy change enabled us to then bring in the LGBTQ+ fellowship under the Rotary umbrella and bring in more diverse voices into Rotary. But during the same period of time, all was well with my club culture. And I want to share a story about this. In my club, for several years, we had a very painful situation. We had a decorated war veteran who was unfiltered. He had a really good heart, but he made many, many inappropriate comments. And there's one particular club meeting that really sticks in my mind. We had a visitor who walked in wearing a baseball hat. Now, if you're in the military, I think there's a very strict rule that you always take your hats off when you walk inside a room. But in the spirit of diversity, equity, and inclusion, there was an invisible difference. This particular visitor was a chef. And so, of course, in his vocation, he always wore a hat inside. Unfortunately, our Rotarian member called him out publicly. It was embarrassing. And as you can imagine, this chef never visited our club again. None of us intervened that day. We lost a potential member and we allowed those microaggressions to continue. I'm ashamed to say that I was a person of inaction, and so were my other club members. You know, diversity has always been one of Rotary core values. And I personally am energized by our focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I really appreciate Rotarian Gordon's reaffirmation of that. Because by looking and seeing in on DEI, it really helps us look at our norms and our policies with fresh eyes. And a policy that's put in place that's very important for us is an adult harassment policy, because this enables us and empowers us to be able to types of situations when they occur. Now, reflecting back on vocational service, the concept of vocational service is rooted in the object of Rotary, which is our philosophical statement about our purpose and our responsibilities. And in particular, that second object of Rotary encourages to foster ethical behavior and standards and recognize and embrace all work and how we can all use our skills and our experience to serve society. To close, I want to just say that 40 years ago, I received a gift of Rotary because there was an individual Rotarian whose profession, higher education, and he was willing to employ his vocation to help a small town girl from Missouri obtain a Rotary ambassadorial scholarship that was life-changing. So as we go through the month of January, I encourage all of us to reflect on how we can use our vocation, our skill, our experience to serve and change lives. Thank you very much.